Hey, everyone. Blockchain Bernie here. My latest episode streaming live from fabulous Las Vegas again. And this one is about Solana storage finally making sense. And we're talking about the Xandeum buckets here. And as you all know, we are developing the Xandeum scalable storage layer. And I've released a lot of news in the past few videos about where we are with all that and how it integrates into the Solana ecosystem, how it solves the blockchain storage trilemma. And in this video, I'm going to show you what it really delivers for developers of storage-enabled decentralized apps, right? Those are the SET apps, the storage-enabled D apps. And that's what we actually deliver. That is kind of the front yard of the house that we're building, right? So with the Xandeum storage layer, I've shown you a little bit of the backyard of the house, how it integrates into the Solana sphere, and how the whole storage economy works. There are going to be a little bit more details on the economy in upcoming videos. But this one is about why are we building all that and why do we think that it's going to be a game changer for devs, for startups that build new stuff on Solana and build new stuff on Xandeum. And yeah, let's dive right into it. And here was the smart contract, the blockchain storage trilemma again, right? And it has been thought that we can't achieve all three of these here, right? We can either be scalable to exabytes or can have random access, or we can be smart contract native. And the smart contract native, and you know, why are we doing all this here, right? Because we want to spark that Cambrian explosion of new Web3 apps that will finally be the breakthrough for blockchain into, mainstream adoption. And we're in the blockchain Cambrium, right? So if you haven't heard of the Cambrian explosion, just Google it or read the Wikipedia article about it. It was back in that, very old age in the history of the universe called the Cambrium, where there was a big spark in creating of new species, right? Suddenly, species after species after species, that's why it was called the explosion, came about to be on planet Earth, right? And it was concentrated in that, area, which was called the Cambrium. And we're, on the cusp of entering blockchain's Cambrium, right? Because what are the species that I'm talking about? Those are the different kind of species of Web3 apps. And if you look at Web3 apps today, they are kind of very, very limited. So many of the things that have been invented in Web2 yet, like databases, like, large customer databases, uploading of PDF files to make a decision about your loan or stuff like that. It's all possible in Web 2, but in Web 3, we're not even there. I mean, Web 2 is the old stuff. We're supposed to be doing more on Web 3, but we can't even mimic Web 2, not even 1% of it. And why can't we do that? Because we don't have that scalable storage layer that fulfills the trilemma, right? Only if we fulfill this trilemma, it has to be smart contract native so that people that build these apps, they're building smart contracts, right? They don't want to enter a different universe that's called storage and then have to figure out how to bring the two worlds together, right? The devs that build these smart contracts, they need to be able to build them just the same way that they had before, but just have these new primitives that allow them to access that scalable storage layer that we're building. And these primitives, as I've mentioned before, are being called peek and poke. It could be seek, peek, and poke, as I will be laying out today. And it's also peek, poke, and prove because it's later being proved and validated by the regular vanilla Solana validator, so we have it all integrated into the Solana chain. But this video, again, is about why are we building that, right? We are building that to spark that Cambrian explosion of new Web3 apps, to be a game changer for any developer that builds a Web3 app on top of Solana, on top of Xandeum. We want that game changer so that Solana finally looks like a real computer, like a real server to them, right? With both RAM, like random access memory, which is, you know, fast and very close to the CPU, but also having a storage layer in the form of a file system, right? And now I'm talking about a file system. We've had that design decision to make. Do we want it to be like an object store, or do we want it to be a file system, right? An object store is a little bit of a misleading term. It feels like you have smaller objects that you can move around and update and stuff like that. But object store, it's kind of, you know, the prototype of an object store is Amazon S3. And there you have that concept of buckets. And we're borrowing that concept of buckets with the Xandeum buckets. So the buckets are kind of a larger piece of container where many objects, in the case of S3, can be in. But for us, it's going to be files that are in the buckets, right? Because we're building that random access file system. And I'll get into some of the details on why we're doing that in this video, so stay tuned. And by the way, if you like content like this, please give me the like button, subscribe to my channel. And subscribing is especially important these days because we're launching a few cool things. We have that points program and all these type of things. So be subscribed. Also go to Xandeum.com and subscribe to our email list there and subscribe to our Discord channel. All right, so why did we make the decision to go for a file system instead of an object store? And what's the difference, by the way, right? So with an object store, we can store objects, but these objects are immutable, right? So I can't just overwrite something in the middle of that object, right? I'd have to kind of copy it and create a new version of it, which has a new immutable identifier, right? While that can be great, and it can, you know, reduce errors in apps that we're building on top of it, but it is also a limitation, right? It is not the broad primitives that have been proven, by the way, by Unix file systems, right? Unix file systems have that, right? You have buckets, which are file systems. Then you can create, you know, directories and files in there, and these files are random access. So you can read and write with a specific length, right? So if the whole file is like 1 gigabyte, you can position the pointer using seek, right? Or lseek in Unix. You can position the pointer to 1 megabyte measured from the start of the file, right? Which is kind of really close to the start of the file if the whole thing is 1 gigabyte. You can position it to that 1 megabyte, and then you can read 7 bytes, right? And these 7 bytes could be Xandeum, right? I mean, the 7 letters Xandeum, right? And then you can position the pointer to some other place, right? You can read something else there, and then you can overwrite a certain number of bytes, right? It could be 3 bytes, it could be a megabyte, it could be a gigabyte that you overwrite. And that's how file systems work. They don't have that immutability. Immutability is a little bit of a higher level concept. It is great for certain applications, but for us, we want to spark that Cambrian explosion. And with that Cambrian explosion of Web3 apps, they need a concept that's fundamental, where we can build anything on top of that, right? And if you are thinking like, well, we have Solana accounts, we can build anything on top of that. No, we can't, because Solana accounts don't scale, right? And there is no storage layer, no scalable storage layer that works with it. And I've talked about how we implement that. We cut all that data in pages. We encrypt it. We give it a configurable redundancy, so it's going to be stored, the same piece of data, the same page of data is going to be stored on several PNodes, and all these type of things. But, in this video, we're talking about facing to the developer, right? The developer then has these tools of having a random access file system. And trust me, guys, each and every developer in the world is used to that. Because each and every computer, whether it's running Linux, Mac OS, Windows, you name it, they have file systems, right? And they're being used all the time. And you can build like an object store on top of it, like blobs to store images or videos. That's the main purpose of Amazon S3. Or you can build databases on top of it, right? Like, yeah, and customer and order databases and all that kind of stuff, right? So we need these primitives, and we call them peek, poke, prove, and maybe we'd have to extend it to seek, peek, poke, prove, which is not so nice, though. Maybe you have an idea of something similar to seek that starts in a P. If you do, let me know in the comments. By the way, commenting on this video gives you points. And if you write a comment that sparks a conversation with me or others in the comments, and then you comment multiple times, then you get those points multiple times, right? Okay, so given all that, right, we've made the decision to borrow these concepts from Amazon S3. So we will be inspired by S3 and as compatible as possible, but we will build that file system first and then potentially building an object store on top of that, because we feel that file system thing, that gives the random access aspect that we have in our blockchain storage trilemma. And only with that, we can spark that Cambrian explosion. And, I can't mention that often enough. That's the goal, right? We want to make the blockchain a generally accepted server, a decentralized world server that apps can be built on, right? Because the world wants decentralized apps. Not everywhere, right? It's going to be a long process, right? It's not like everyone only wants an EV today, right? There are use cases where EVs are not great these days, right? So it's going to be a long process, and there's definitely use cases for centralized systems. They will stay forever. But the world is hungry for decentralized systems. Crypto has trillions of dollars in market capitalization, and it's only all about decentralized control. If nobody would care about decentralized control, they wouldn't pay these trillions of dollars to invest into the future of decentralized systems, because that's what you're doing when you invest in crypto, right? Nothing else. If not for the decentralized control of it, you could do it way, way cheaper, easier with other systems these days, right? So we're building that decentralized world, which is awesome, which helps society in many ways. I've done other videos about that. But, we're building that world computer, and that world computer is kind of muted right now, right? There is no storage layer, and it's kind of a crippled version of that world computer that we're running on today. Whether it's Solana, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's any other smart contract platform, there is no scalable storage layer in the form that we are building it. So we've chosen that file system model. We're being as much S3 compatible as possible, and with the buckets and creating buckets and all that stuff, it's all going to be the same and equivalent to S3. And explicitly, we are reserving the right for us, or someone else for that matter, to build an object store on top of that file system, right? And for example, one of the storage solutions that are out there in the Solana sphere is called Shadow Drive. SHDW is their ticker symbol. So they tout themselves as an object store. They tout themselves as decentralized. I'm not so sure if it's decentralized control with them. It's more like geographically decentralized. But I don't see that network of PNodes that we have, where we have really kind of a blockchain-like a universe that's tightly integrated into Solana that can make that Cambrian explosion happen, right? So, yeah. And how does that all look like? I have a little bit of code here for you. Let's have a look at that here. So this is how it could look like. And this is pseudocode, right? So this is not like the Rust code that an app developer on Solana would actually write, because that's a little bit confusing if you've never written a Solana app before. So we've made this a little bit of pseudocode here, right? So what can a Web3 developer do? They can create a bucket here, and they can create a file within the bucket, and then they can take a Solana account and get data out of the Solana account and copy it using poke into our bucket, right? And then in step 5, they can seek to a different position in the file, right? So they can say new position equals 1024, and then seek there. And then they can also use metadata, by the way, and another similarity to Amazon S3. And then they can poke that to the new position, and whatever was in that position before will be overwritten by the new data that we're pulling from Solana accounts. And then we can seek to just another position there, and can peek there. And yeah, that's all the flexibility that we need here for building, any kind of app, storage enabled, decentralized app on the Solana chain. And this is going to spark that Cambrian explosion of Web3 apps. Finally, all the Web2 apps that we have will be, at least, that's a minimum that we want, right? That everything we can do in Web2, which is supposed to be the old tech, right? We want to be able to do that in a similar fashion. It doesn't have to be, one for one backwards compatible or something. And that's not what I'm saying. But somehow, qualitatively, we want to do anything that we can do on Web 2. We want to be able to do that on Web 3. And for that, just the scalable storage layer is missing. Super excited to work on that. Super excited for the news that are going to come out on September 18th. So stay tuned here. And subscribe to all our channels on X, on YouTube, and especially on email. And yeah, I'm so excited to actually spark this camp. And we had one explosion when smart contracts came out, right? It was the first time in 2015 that the blockchain became programmable, right? And Vitalik at that point didn't know what it's going to be used for, right? It's not like he didn't build an app, right? He built like a world computer that anyone can build apps on, right? So that's that piece of infrastructure. And, kind of, I hate that word infrastructure in the meantime, because when I say infrastructure, many people think that's like the RPC nodes and the hardware and blah, blah, blah that powers it, right? No, there's a different level of infrastructure that Vitalik came out with and others, of course, came out with in 2015, making the blockchain programmable. So it was possible then, for the first time in history, to have apps that run on the blockchain, right? And Solana built on that. They made it more performant. They made it scalable and everything. So a whole new class of apps can be built on the Solana chain. And they have that, Solana has that OPOS type of marketing thing going on that says only possible on Solana. And there are indeed a lot of things that are only possible on Solana. But think about, we get that scalable storage layer within the Solana universe. It'll be crazy. It'll be it's like with the birth of Ethereum, that was like the birth of Earth, and maybe having some oxygen in the atmosphere, and having some microorganisms in the oceans and stuff like that. So finally there was life, right? So life on the blockchain in the sense of building apps, that was created with Ethereum in 2015, and we're almost 10 years later, right? And we are at the cusp of that Cambrian age of the blockchain, where we actually have conditions, and these conditions will be that scalable storage layer, right? Where so many more apps can be built on this file system primitive that's scalable to exabytes plus, even to zettabytes. Exabytes just a random number, right? It's scalable even beyond that. And having that random access native to smart contracts, scalable to exabytes, that creates the condition for that Cambrian explosion. And I can't wait to see that Cambrian explosion happen. Until that, there's a lot more work to do, and I hope you participate. You join us on that journey here, right? And don't miss that news that will be coming out September 18th. And you will have so many opportunities to join in. A token will be listed where you can participate in all that. And we have the liquid staking product that will capture all the future storage rewards that will be possible when that scalable storage layer is there. That will all be captured with our liquid staking pool. So it's storage enabled and MEV enabled staking. So we're the first stake pool with that. And it's all 100% interwoven into the storage layer idea that we're building. Once the liquid staking product is launched, we're going into building out that PNode network and building our new DevNet that's heavily focused on the PNodes, but still will also have the validator nodes. And exciting things are going to come. Again, only 2 weeks left or so until Singapore. We're going to be one of the main sponsors of the Solana Breakpoint event. If you're there, visit us. If you need a free ticket, let me know in the comments. We still have a few left. And otherwise, thanks so much for watching today. Catch you later. Peace.